Hello, and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast, where we finally have a Tyler Perry hidden immunity idol. Thanks to Tony. It's in Tony's hands where it needs to be. And somehow, Andy, this episode was not quite as bananas as I thought it would be last week. What did you think?
Yeah, we had this like, oh, it's a world of infinite possibilities. And I was like, no, the most basic. That everything will just find a way to reassert itself back to what it almost was last week.
In a season with Tony, I can't believe that we ever got back to a status quo.
Yeah, no, and possibly will be for a little bit. You know what? We should talk about the Tyler Perry idol for at least a minute or two. Is this going to ruin the entire game?
I go back and forth, but I mean, I was rooting for, if anybody found it, for it to be Tony, just because I feel like that's the most entertaining option. And I think that this season, depending on when it expires, I think we'll actually see it be used. Meaning that I think that they are going to flip on Tony at some point, and he's going to play that idol, obviously. And it's going to work. We're going to see the effects of that idol. So I guess I'll reserve judgment until it happens, but I'm not optimistic about it.
Yeah, I kind of think that it's not going to be as big a deal as we feared because of, A, the person who found it, and B, the part of the game we're at. I mean, I'm with you that Tony is more likely to do something entertaining with it because he's more likely to do something entertaining than anybody else on the show with anything. But there's less you can do with this idol, right? He can't give it away. He can't do all that. He basically just gets to wait till he finds out people try to vote him out and say, no, thank you. But I think at this point in the game, it's not going to give him blanket immunity for like an entire season the way it, you could argue that it did with Yule or Terry. I think both of those arguments maybe not quite accurate. Like, Terry had blanket immunity because he won immunity. But it's going to protect him, 3 more votes? A couple of which he might have been protected anyway, just due to math.
We don't actually know when it's going to expire, but it's not going to be done before Final 5, right?
No, I can't imagine it would ever be done before Final 5 because we're closer to Final 5 than we should be for an idol to show up. But it could be more than Final 5. We don't know. But I think, it would be actually more likely to break the game if, Spencer or Tasha found it. Then they get to completely flip things around from now till expiration. Whereas Tony, I don't think is now in danger for a little bit anyway, whether people know he has the idol or not. So,
well, wait a minute. Could Tasha and Spencer? I mean, assuming they find it now, could they have done anything with it? Because they're down to 2 and you can vote split.
Touché. So yeah, it's almost like by waiting this long, and I mean, they never put a clue out there. What was the plan to push this thing into being?
How is the only clue that it's somewhere near your camp? And judging by where Tony was looking, it didn't look like it's right within eyeshot of the camp. I mean, it looked like you had to go off the beaten path a little bit.
You had to go out on a big run to find it, yeah. I think when they said somewhere near your camp, it's within the little campground that we've rented out of this part of the Philippines. But yeah, I know from the moment we heard about this, we were like, oh god, why? But I almost think it's just not going to be that big a deal. It might ultimately just be like an idol. It will protect him from a vote. And it's very likely it might be the vote that he would have played any kind of idol anyway. If it only goes to Final 5 and that's when he needs it, then he probably would have played a normal powered idol at that point.
Assuming he had one.
Yes. Well, it's just if you're assuming he's finding an idol, because what people aren't angry about that it is an idol, they're angry that it's a super powered idol. And I just almost wonder if the superpowers have almost been diminished because we're at the end, almost at the end now. But last night's episode, besides idol chicanery, there were a couple decisions to be made. Not a whole ton. Surprisingly, the biggest decision of the night was made by Jeffra. Did you know there was a Jeffra on the show?
I've heard rumors. I don't know that it was even a decision. Actually, it was a decision, and then it flipped in the other direction. So, really, how much of a decision was made there?
So, I think the standard way of thinking right now is that, she made the right decision, and it's not that big a deal. Is that kind of what you think?
The basic question is, should she have flipped? And I think the answer is no. And the reason will explain my thoughts on 2 players this season. The answer is no, because Spencer didn't play this right. He had the immunity idol. If he doesn't have to tell Jeffra this, he's got her saying, yes, I'm going to flip with you guys. It's us 4. We'll go 4-4. We'll do rocks, which is ridiculous. No one's going to do that. But anyway, so at that point, he needs to say to her, listen, Jeffra, I need you to tell them you're still with them, blah, blah, blah. Find out who they're voting for. If he does that, then he can play the idol. It makes sense. They'll actually get numbers. But he doesn't. But on the opposite side of the coin, the much more perceptive and socially aware Trish is a superstar with social cues. She notices that Jeffra has a look on her face that seems to suggest that she might be flipping on them. Goes and has a conversation with her, works her magical Pilates powers, and Jeffra, 30 minutes later, is going to tell Jeremiah, hey guys, I changed my mind, I'm not flipping.
I agree with you on Spencer. He did not do very well with the idol last night, and not because he played it for himself instead of Jeremiah. There are other powers that the idol possesses besides just, erasing votes, and he did not explore any of those powers in any meaningful way. And we don't have, everybody can be like, oh, maybe he tried this, maybe he tried that. Real talk. If he had tried anything, the show would have showed it, because it would have been more entertaining than what happened. But yes, absolutely. Once they have Jeffra agreeing to be on their side, that's when you say, oh, and by the way, we have an idol, you're not going to go home in a tie situation. Just tell us where the vote's going, and there's going to be no rocks. So she didn't have that information, so I'll give her some benefit of the doubt there. But even still, I kind of think she should have flipped and risked rocks in the same way that Sierra risked rocks last season. Yes, she might go home tonight unnecessarily, but it was her only shot at showing people that she is indeed a player in this game, and maybe possibly getting votes at the end if she was to make it.
Would that have made her your new Sierra and thus enraged me every week as you tried to proclaim that she's a good player?
No. Well,
Okay.
For one, it wasn't going to happen. The scenario that I'm speaking of is not something that's in Jeffra's makeup. But if you want to win Survivor at a certain point, unless you have been controlling things all along, you have to do something. And this was a risky thing to do, but she had to do it. And then Trish, again, made the great play of saying, you don't want to go to the end with those people. But it's not like Jeffra has a better chance against Trish or Tony. The only chance she has is if she suddenly becomes impressive. And this would have been her chance to become impressive.
So this is why I think Trish was a social superstar, because she sells Jeffra that argument, and that's a totally self-serving argument for Trish, because Trish, in her mind, is probably thinking, yeah, don't flip because I need you. I can totally beat you at the end.
Oh, absolutely. I'm Team Trish. I've been there for a while. Maybe not first team Trish. She might be on my all-second team. But I've loved what she's been doing, and last night was just another example of it.
She has been on a roll lately.
Yeah, I do think Jeffra should have quit. It was not an easy decision. It would have been one wrought with danger, but sometimes the avoidance of risk in this game is actually worse than risk itself, because at a certain point you just look up and you've done nothing and it doesn't matter. You can only avoid problems for so long before your nothingness is the problem that you were trying to avoid. I guess there was one other small decision last night. I'm just trying to figure out why'd they vote for Wu instead of Tony?
I don't know that they ever actually proclaimed the logic behind this, so I might be just wishful thinking here, but it makes total sense. If Spencer is thinking strategically, and given what we saw with his interactions with Jeffra last night, maybe that's giving him too much credit. If he's thinking strategically, Wu is the right one to go after, because Tony, if you keep him around, is both a more useful target to recruit Jeffra back to your side and say, hey, Jeffra, now we can get Tony. And he's also more likely to flip over to your side to take out Jeffra or Cass. So you get kind of a win-win situation if you keep Tony.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Again, we don't know if that was their motivation, but that's a good reason. I think the stated motivation was that they were worried about Wu in challenges in a way that they're not worried about Tony.
And that was what they said, but I don't, if that's the actual reason, boo.
Yeah, whoopee, But yeah, I agree with you there. And actually, one more point on Spencer the Idol. There were so many other things, maybe not so many, but he should have pulled the Idol out at Tribal, but like before they voted, right? He should have done the old put it around his neck thing that, Tony just did, a week ago their time?
I don't know, though. I kind of feel like in that situation, me being the risk-averse type, I would always play it on myself. I mean, you just never know, especially with Tony on the other side. You never know what's going to happen. So just to be safe, I don't fault Spencer at all for playing it on himself, even though there was a preponderance of evidence that they were leaning towards Jeremiah. I mean, Wu was kind of selling it as them voting Jeremiah, and I think Tony might trick you, but I don't think Wu has it within him to do that. So I can see the reason why you'd play it for Jeremiah, but at the same time, I'd be a total coward and keep it for myself.
Did Tony trick him? Like, what was Tony doing with that bag of tricks?
That was bizarre. I mean, I think you and I have kind of talked about some possibilities for why he did that, and I don't know if that's just us giving him too much credit or not. I don't really know. Is he crazy, or was that like a crazy like a fox move? I couldn't pigeonhole that one.
I think most of his moves this season could be positioned as crazy like a fox. And almost like he's just gonna try a bunch of little things, and maybe it only helps 1% more, but maybe after a while those percentages add up to like real help. And this is my theory that I don't think is way out there. I think by a reading of what we saw, can piece some of this together. Is that he was trying to make Spencer think that they were afraid of Spencer giving it away, or something like that. Like, he was trying to get Spencer to play it for himself. So, Spencer stands up with an idol, and Tony was trying to show fear, like, oh no, Spencer has an idol, I better grab my other idol. Right,
and that's the most logical conclusion to draw, but we never really got that.
Yeah, and then Tony kind of spurted out a bit, like when he was saying, "Do you see what he did there, Jeff, with his inexperience? He was thinking that, and then he didn't play it for Jeremiah, and this is a fake idol." I don't know. He said something like that. I didn't completely understood it. So, I think that was what he was doing, or maybe he was just doing something to see if good things will happen for him, because that's been working.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen that Tony's crazy moves never seem to blow up in his face, so the guy just has a horseshoe in his butt this season and is lucking out everywhere. But I guess the end goal was probably to convince Spencer to play the idol on himself. But I don't know if that's actually true or if that's...
Well, I think that's actually true. That would be the goal, but that might not be why he was doing it.
That's what I'm saying, is I don't know that was his, intention at that point.
It could just be that he didn't like the way they scoffed when he talked about Bag of Tricks, and he's like, I'll show you guys.
This week we have a special guest for our program. It's longtime questioner, first-time guest, XL Pelican. We're going to call him Will, just to make it a little less awkward, rather than referring to a grown man as Pelican. So, Will, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming. It's going to be weird, having you talk, because you usually just provide a segment every week for us by giving us questions, and now you'll be the segment.
Right. Well, I'm honored.
Yeah, we don't have sponsors, but we should call it the listener question/feedback segment, sponsored by XL Pelican.
Right. I won a contest to be here. The listeners don't know that, but...
Yeah.
So how did you find the show? I know you comment on the AV Club now, but is that where you first?
Yes. I've actually been lurking there for 3 or 4 years. And then I finally made an account so that I could ask someone where I could get this podcast.
Awesome. The power of the Purple Rock podcast.
You are now our most favorite listener that isn't currently on Survivor.
Take that, Emma and Matt. All right, so let's start this thing off the way we usually do. First of all, how long have you been watching Survivor?
I've been watching Survivor since Guatemala. I mean, I watched the first season as a teenager, I guess, but I got really bored during Australia. And then when I heard they were introducing idols in Guatemala, I'm like, this could change things up. I'm going to start watching. And then once they got to Panama, I was hooked. And from there, it was just magic, except for Nicaragua, which I have never seen even a minute of.
Bravo.
Good man.
You played that well.
I was busy, but it just played out that way.
It's interesting that, it was the idols of Guatemala got you interested, and you weren't just like, well, that was kind of nothing. Because the idol in Guatemala was basically nothing.
That's true. It was very disappointing.
I mean, it'll be awesome when Tyler Perry suggests it for next season, but what, besides Idols, what's kind of drawn you to the game? What do you like about it?
I basically just like this voting strategy and kind of the game theory of it. Mostly, I really like the idle play. I mean, that's obviously what brought me to it. But one thing I do not like is kind of characters.
Meaning the Brandon Hans / Philip Shepard type characters.
Right. A coach and even Cochran for a little while. That really grates on me. So what I really like is kind of self-reflective players that are kind of articulate and objective narrators.
So was Yule your favorite player?
He's very close. Actually, Denise is my favorite player.
There you go.
Denise from Philippines. She did a pretty good job of relating things as they stood and controlling herself. So that's something I admired a lot.
All right, well, that's going to lead us into the big topic for discussion tonight, and I think you might have answered it. John and I, at some point in the season, have become very pro-Tony. We both started on the opposite end of the spectrum. One of us even foolishly said he had no chance of winning after only seeing 20 minutes of footage. And I don't think that's the way everybody feels out there. That's probably one of the exciting parts of Tony as a character, a word that you don't seem to like, is that he's one of those you love him or hate him types. And we thought we'd bring you on the show to represent the other side of the coin. So why don't you share your thoughts about Tony?
Well, I do not hate him. I mean, I realize that he is a person, on a TV show. But I don't like the game that he's playing. I feel like he's getting credit for a lot of things that is either other people's work or pure dumb luck. Things like the Spy Shack, Spy Shack isn't really great play, and we can talk about that later, but there's a lot of things that kind of rub me the wrong way. For all of his big moves, Trish has been kind of the one cleaning up the kind of trail of debris he's left behind him, and he's never really had to deal with the consequences of his actions. Also, I don't think people on the island think of him as a good strategist. They kind of think of him as a wild card, especially if you listen to the secret scenes and the EW scene and stuff. A lot of people think he's just a wild card, and the Morgan vote is a good example of that. Pretty much everyone on the tribe wanted to vote out Tasha at, I guess that was the final 9, maybe final 10. But Tony was feeling threatened because his name has been written down. And so they kept Tasha and voted out Morgan, who is threatening nobody. And so everyone on his alliance thinks, well, he's easily frightened and he's not making really sound strategic decisions. I kind of think of Tony as the Monica of the group.
Ooh. Harsh criticism.
In that respect. And then finally, I don't think he has great support on the jury. And some of that may be obvious. I think LJ is probably the only person who's really think he's playing a good game. And his tribal council performances have been, I think, uniformly terrible. He comes off as, really defensive and aggressive. If you compare kind of Spencer's tribal council performances versus his, I think it's pretty clear who's playing at least the better tribal councils.
Oh, I think you might be giving Spencer too much credit there. I'm not that impressed with Spencer at tribal council. No, he gets into some histrionics after fist pumps and 0% chance casts. I mean, the types of things that's going to blow your game.
Right. I guess I was more referring to the pre-vote argument. And I certainly see your point. Spencer's acting like a 21-year-old college student.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think people are more likely to forgive that than just kind of the unpleasantness of Tony at tribal council.
I wonder though, because as a viewer, I think we're exposed to certain things about Tony. I don't know that he's not liked. I kind of feel like he probably does have support from the people out there. I think there's people that genuinely like him. I do agree with you though that they do view him as a wild card, and I know if I were playing, I would be terrified to be aligned with him just because you never know what you're going to get, and predictability is something you crave, and Tony is anything but predictable. But I don't think he's disliked.
Yeah, I've been giving some thought and kind of looking at it from a Moneyball perspective, because every week we like to throw out terms that only a small segment of our audience might understand. But what's happened, I think Survivor, there's become a fairly defined playbook, and there's been a lot of people who've been successful at using that you want to, wait for the moment Don't splash around too much. Control things socially. And just kind of let the game come to you. And this has worked really well for Denise, for Kim. But it also kind of only works for a certain subset of players, and everybody else has just kind of been out there. And I think what Tony has done is, and maybe unwittingly, but he's kind of found the market inefficiency in that nobody wants to, like, outright take control of a game, because typically that hasn't worked. But right now it seems to be working. Like, he's just pushing, and people are, because, you know, it's become the thing where you should step back and not be the pusher. They're stepping back and all of a sudden, oh wait, I'm not in the game anymore. Or, oh look at that, all my options have disappeared because, you know, the numbers aren't there anymore. So it's almost like by constantly going on the offensive, constantly doing things that make people think that, you know, he's not a true threat, he's just unstable, that he's still somehow getting his way. And to your point earlier, a lot of it is luck. But it's almost like he's creating his own luck by always forcing the issue.
Andy, you hadn't talked in so long that I was a little worried you might be having a stroke.
I was letting you talk, John. I know you're not used to that, but, you know, I'm feeling generous tonight.
This is the first. I'm very scared by what's happening right now. Anyway, I'll allow you to answer that. Go ahead and respond, Will.
Well, I think the Survivor kind of playbook exists for a reason. And if Tony wins, and I realize there's a pretty significant chance that he does win, then we will have to kind of revise the rule book, but I'm not quite willing to do it yet. So I don't think we've seen anyone play as aggressive as him.
Not successfully, anyway. There's been people that have pushed the envelope. I mean, the obvious comp always is Russell.
Right.
But then there's also people that have and then flamed out, which, I mean, for the longest time is what I expected of Tony. But now it's kind of like, when's it going to happen? Because we're running out of time for that to happen.
Right, and it may be that, you know, his newly found idol will prevent his comeuppance from ever occurring. But, goddammit, I'll keep my faith in that long-established rule book. It exists for a reason because we've seen everyone that behaves like he does kick the bucket.
Don't you think, though, that now that he has that Tyler Perry idol, he's just going to be even more emboldened and just insane?
Yes.
I mean, that's obviously a potential. I just kind of think that there aren't a whole lot of moves left to be made. Like, if you're thinking from a Tony perspective, which is hard for us, or possibly anybody to do, but especially, you know, risk-adverse people that are more used to a more traditional game, who are the threats in his mind? They're Spencer, Tosh, maybe Wu. Well, those are kind of the people that you'd take out next anyway, whether you had an idol or not. Like, I don't see him, like, suddenly crazy, turning it around and voting out who is actually the real threat is Trish. But I don't think he would recognize that. So it's almost like if he had gotten this idol 2 votes ago, then maybe he'd be even doing crazier stuff. But it's almost like the plays are simple for everybody at this point, and I think the idol almost might be immaterial in that.
It's a fair point. I mean, there's lots of game left to play, though. And Tony at some point is going to realize that he has to get past the final 4. And presumably his idol won't be good in the final 4. So he's going to have to, you know, pick among his alliance and see, okay, who's actually going to take me? And, you know, it depends on whether he has the pulse on his alliance mates. Right now, I think they probably won't want to take him, given kind of the excellent setup that Spencer and Tasha delivered last Tribal Council. I just can't see them taking him. And once he finds that out, he might react poorly.
I do love the Spencer and Tasha move to say, hey, we're voting for Tony. Hayden's the first one I remember doing that. I'm sure it's happened before that, but I mean, recency thing. I just remember Hayden doing it last season. I feel like that's a good move when your back's against the wall to just point out like, hey, this guy's going to beat you, just to try to sow some dissension as quickly as you can as a last ditch effort. I like that move. I don't know if it'll pay off for them, but I like it.
Yeah, how well did it pay off for Hayden, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's kind of also my point, is that we've kind of gotten to this space where the alpha dog, the top dog, this is a spot that for the longest time you just wanted to avoid. Hasn't been that bad a spot, you know, but people identified on the island very early last season that Tyson was the person to beat, and no one did it. You know, I mean, it was the same thing with
Right.
Kim in One World. It was the thing with Boston Rob probably from the minute he stepped on the beach at Redemption Island. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, is maybe that's the new market inefficiency, is just be the alpha and play hard. But if you're going to be that, then you always have to be playing. You can't just take a step back for a few days like Aris did, like LJ did. And that's a tough way to play. I couldn't do it. Also because, people wouldn't give me that level of control, but it's working so far. And every time I think that it's going to stop working, the show proves me wrong.
You mean some internet nerds with a podcast couldn't pose as alpha males on Survivor?
Well, maybe on a brains try.
One thing that requires is everyone has to believe that they are in a final three with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that's possible.
Honestly, I think he does have a final three, and they're convinced that they're his final three. Whether that holds or not, I don't know. But I think that Wu and Trish believe that they are in a final three alliance with Tony, and I think he believes that as well.
I think that's true, and I think, he's also made Cass know that she's the final four, which again it wasn't terrible in that, she's leaped over 5, but it wasn't as good as saying, hey, Cass, you're 3. Now, I guess you can't really say that in front of the other 2 people.
Right.
But another thing I was thinking, though, basically what happened from last night with Tony, and maybe this is me taking a chance to try and pat myself on the back. I think last night showed that the move against LJ, well, again, it was something that we opposed from a traditional standpoint, was the right move, and not just results-based, that it didn't hurt him this week, but more, it shows that you take out the top players when you have a chance. You take out your big threats when you have a chance, because people were probably thinking they had a chance to take out Tony later, and now they don't.
Right, this was the comparison we made to last season with Jervis supposedly saying that he was going to take out Tyson at some point and just never doing it, kept putting it off, and then you just don't have the opportunity. You have to sometimes take the opportunity while you have it, and I ended up there last week anyway. I was on board with Tony's move. I talked myself into it, and then by the end I was fully convinced it was the right way to go.
Yeah, and it was, we saw it on Redemption Island. I think probably most of those people thought, oh, we'll get rid of Rob later and let him take the arrows now. And then all he has to do is win a few immunities. It was the same with Kim. We last season were a little uncomfortable with Tyson targeting Aris as early as he did. And that paid off. So we'll see. I'm not saying that Tony's going to win this season. There's another player that I think has a pretty good chance as well that we're going to get to in a second.
Yeah, I think Will already touched on it.
But if he does, it just shows that we might need to advance our playbook a bit, and maybe that's just because we're in a new era of Survivor.
So, well, and if we're not, then the point that Will brought up earlier is going to come through. Trish, theoretically, would be next in line. At least you and I see her that way. The only problem I have with her is I don't know how well liked she is. She is really impressing me with her social game, but I still don't know that means that everybody likes her.
I think she's pretty well liked. Even Morgan, in a secret scene, expressed at least positive feelings about her in her Pilates mumbo jumbo.
Okay, well, see, that's encouraging because I feel like Morgan is the type that she would have trouble convincing to vote for her. But if Morgan's already on board, I feel like Sarah's much easier to persuade. And LJ, she clearly had some rapport going with. So that's encouraging for the Trish prospects.
Well, that's what we're already counting 3 people there. She needs 1 more to win, right? Look, I'm not saying those 3 are in lock, but they're in play.
Yeah, I feel like Jeffra and Cass could easily be convinced to vote Trish at the end.
Yeah. The problem Trish will run into is whether people know that she's made the moves that she's made, whether people know that she was kind of the one driving the blindsiding against Cliff, whether people know that she swayed Cass, whether people know that she cleaned up Tony's disaster after they voted out LJ.
Right. So I think for her, it's going to come down to how well she can sell her moves at that final tribal council. If she pulls an Amanda Kimmel, she's doomed.
Well, let's be clear, everybody's doomed if they ever pull an Amanda Kimmel.
This is true.
But yeah, and that would be tough, especially against a player as showy as Tony, right? Like, even if we can step back and look and it's like, not all of those were true. The same thing was in China. Todd was not as good as he was able to make people think he was. But perception is all that's important.
See, I think that's where Tony's going to run into a problem. I don't think he has kind of the objectivity to make a objective presentation about his game. I think he's going to come out very defensive. Maybe not about, this is why I betrayed all of you, but defensive about something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Trish is going to have a chance, if they're in a final tribal council together, which is, I think, unlikely. I think Trish is going to have a chance to get a foot in the door.
I think if Trish sells herself as the steak to Tony's sizzle and then explains, Tony thought he was making all these moves to win the game, but here's what I did that actually should win me the game. Mm-hmm. That's the argument to make.
I think people are willing to believe that Tony is easily manipulated. I think they will readily believe that she tricked him into doing some of these things, or, forced some of these things.
I think given the preview we got for next week, I think Spencer certainly believes Tony is easy to trick into certain things.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I think everybody thinks that until they're wrong and they're voted out, right? Like LJ thought it, right? Mm. LJ thought he had Tony completely managed. I think Cliff did as well, right? So it's another thing where the way people are underestimating Tony right now will help him. If he's suddenly in the final, they'll be like, how did we let this happen? And they'll have to give him some credit for it. And it'll just be interesting to see whether Trish can take that credit back. Because from everything I'm seeing, she fully deserves it. But there's been other players that fully deserve some level of credit that got none. I remember there's a guy who also does podcasting once a week who got 0 votes in front of a final 2 that I'm guessing a lot of people on the internet were saying that who has the brains behind a lot of the moves in Tocantins. So,
yeah.
I mean, now, Tony's no JT. But I think the comp between Fishback and Trish might be, legitimate. But yeah, he really did a lot of stuff, but people were maybe a little less impressed if you're the power behind the guy, if, the guy in front was taking a lot of arrows. So it'll be really interesting if it is those two, and I think it's actually likely in that I see Tony being fine going to the end with Trish. I see Trish wanting to get rid of Tony, so if it's a matter of Tony winning the final immunity, then I think she still makes the end, and then we'll see. We'll see how this one goes, and I think it would be a coin flip right now.
And Will, do you think that Trish would bring Tony to the end with her?
No. I think she will bring Wu or Jeffra or Cass. I think Cass is everyone's dream goat.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wu has done nothing this entire game, so
pretty
unless
evident.
people really like him, when the most interesting thing you do is fall out of a tree and not get hurt, I think you have a problem in front of a jury.
Wu is Fabio with slightly better confessionals, and I know you don't get that reference. Please don't try to get that reference by watching Nicaragua. It's not worth it.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
I've been persuaded.
But the issue there is Fabio won. So, right. I mean, we can undersell Wu all we want, and I will. That guy's not going to win. But if he made it into a final jury, which he won't, I think he could be a threat just because they're not watching him do nothing. If he made it there, he probably wants some immunities to get himself there. They might think he's kind of fun. One other thought I had about Trish is right now, what we really like about her game is that she's doing a remarkable job socially. She has been pulling everybody over. You worry sometimes that might go too far one side, and when it's time to start voting people out, they're going to feel more betrayed by her than they would by Tony. Like at this point, who can feel betrayed by Tony? It's like getting angry at the Scorpion.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was sort of Dawn's problem. Dawn ran into that where everyone had such connection to Dawn, like, oh, how could you betray me? Where no one felt so emotionally attached to Cochran that they felt betrayed by him. Dawn had these tight emotional bonds with people, and she played a great game and got them out, but felt guilty for doing it, and they felt angry at her for being betrayed. They just didn't have that same feeling towards Cochran, and I can see where you're going. I don't think it would be quite as strong with Trish, though. I don't think she's...
Well, she's not crying in front of them or getting them to fetch her teeth or anything like that.
I think she can distance the emotions a little bit.
But we've yet to see Trish vote out somebody on her side. So we have to see how that goes, because she didn't vote out LJ, right? In fact, Tony's been the only person to successfully vote every time he's gone to tribal council.
Didn't Wu?
No, Wu did not vote out Cliff, if you remember his face.
Yeah, Wu wasn't on the right side of the Cliff vote.
Going back to Tony, just because we like to sometimes talk about fun, Tony, potpourri, as it were. what did we talk about the Spy Shack last night? So when he first built the Spy Shack in episode 1, I put him in the 0% club. Like, I thought, whatever, clown. But last night's one, at least it's in a better location.
You know I love my Survivor conspiracy theories. Was that spot filmed afterwards? Because how do Trish and Jeffra not see Tony's cameraman? I'm fine with believing that they didn't see Tony, but Tony's got a cameraman following him. No one sees that?
I guess that when the cameraman knows that Tony is hiding, the cameraman backs like way off, and maybe he doesn't even film him at all, and then they just mix in footage of his eyes peering out into a conversation of Trish and Jeffra, talking about him.
That's probably the easiest explanation. They already had a shot in the can of his eyes.
So they staged that shot?
Well, no, it's more like when he first got there, right? When he first got there, nobody's there yet. He's checking his vantage point. They take they take the shots they need from there, and then the rest is edited.
So you're thinking that they got that when he was testing out the Spy Shack?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another explanation somebody had was there's always camera people taking B-roll footage when they're around too. So if the camera is just kind of moving around, shooting the branches or the trees, it might be at this point for the players just kind of background noise. Or not.
Oh yeah, so the cameraman was just getting the like monkey eating a bug shot that they love to do?
Exactly.
Okay.
Can we talk about how it's probably not a good idea to obviously spy on people who are basically having a discussion about whether they can trust you?
Oh, the irony there.
Again, socially probably not the good traditional move. I mean, I think I've just gotten to the point where I'm just never going to trust my instincts with Tony because I've been so wrong all season. I feel chastised. But you're absolutely right. Building social bonds requires trust, but maybe nobody's going to trust Tony anyway, so go for broke.
Well, yeah. I mean, if he'd fallen out of his Spy Shack or like a bird landed on him or like something bit him, like, and he just has to like jump up. I mean, there goes the vote. There goes Jeffra, right?
Well, there goes a normal player. Maybe we don't want to assume that Jeffra would have too much motivation to do something for herself.
There were mitigating circumstances preventing Jeffra from flipping on them, but we'll discuss those at another point.
She is impressionable.
As Jeff Rope so keenly put it.
But now that's what I'm cheering for. You've given me something to cheer for in the next couple of weeks. Tony falling out of Spy Shack while performing surveillance, as construction workers do. Anyway, I do want to thank you for coming on. I hope you keep giving us segments because it's a good chance that the next 2 weeks there's not going to be a ton to talk about if, the mini Pagongi happens as spoiler alert, will predict.
Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Oh, you don't need to lie to us.
It was tolerable.
Oh, I want to do that as a tagline. Purple Rock Podcast. It was tolerable.
All right, so as you hear, XL Pelican is a listener of the show, and he is, in several weeks now, given us feedback. And I keep calling him by his screen name, even though he gave us permission to use maybe his real name.
So the key to getting on our podcast is to harass us with intelligent questions for us to discuss every week. If you give us things to talk about, we will eventually invite you on the show.
Well, that sounds like a threat for some people. You can say no.
No, it's a threat.
It's
no, you're compelled. We make you.
It's like jury duty. We have many ways that you can reach us. You can leave us voicemails on JR Purple Rock on Skype, which people haven't been doing lately, so come on, step up to the mic.
Quite literally step up to the mic.
Exactly. You see what I'm doing. You can tweet us at Purple Rock Pod. You can email us at purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can leave us a comment on our blog, purplerockpodcast.wordpress.com, and that's what this week's listener did.
Good segue.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're a professional host here.
As soon as they pay me. So,
I use the term professional loosely.
So we got this comment from Katrina. She was just talking, after saying some very lovely things to us to butter us up before dropping the hammer. She says she has a pet peeve when it comes to Survivor chats and Survivor chats that we have. I hate when you and AV Club commenters go on the whole favorable edit or winners edit thing. I get that it's smart and detective-like, and usually right, but it makes me watch the program differently as if I was given spoilers. And I thought that was kind of an interesting comment that I wanted to talk about. First off, I should say, we're not usually right.
If anything, haven't you noticed from our podcast this season that we are not good at reading these edits?
And people, I think, give the impression, people like to say things. That was so clearly this kind of edit. And then, next week when it doesn't come to pass, just tumbleweed. Tony's totally getting set up for a fall for next week. Oh, I guess not so much.
Yep, don't recall those comments at all. Move on.
But, I kind of wanted to talk about why we talk about edits, because I'm just going to say it right now. Thank you very much for the comment, Katrina. I hope you enjoy the show otherwise, but we're not going to stop talking about edits.
I feel like it's sort of like, and I hate to use sports analogy because I feel like not enough Survivor fans cross over to sports fans, so I'm going to alienate some people. But I'll keep it as basic as I can here. If you're predicting the outcome of a sports game, it helps to have some sort of background, unless you're me picking a March Madness bracket when I just randomly pick colleges that I would have gone to. If you know some things, in our case, it's reading an edit. In sports, it might be, record against certain teams, how strong the team is at certain positions, whatever it might be. You use that information. And I feel like we're talking to Survivor nerds. We are Survivor nerds. We're going to give you that information.
Well, also, so much of what we do here on this podcast and just the way we discuss and consume the show in general is predictive. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen. And it's, that's the structure of the show. Every week is kind of a whodunit.
It's like a True Detective, only without amazing boobs. Oh, wait, no. There's those too.
Yes. So we need to take all the evidence that the show is giving us, and through 28 seasons, I think there's been enough to kind of figure out that one of those pieces of evidence is what they're showing us. It's not just everybody has a chance, the way Jeff Probst likes to say it, but it's like the show is a show. It's not just a game. It's not sports. Like if they only showed the NBA after the season, they'd show a lot less Laker games.
This season at least, yes.
But even with that, sometimes the show uses that knowledge of, the tropes that they've built up to mess with us. And so I do think, the idea that, us always talking about edits will spoil things, we're full of it sometimes. But it's just part of the evidence you take in order to form the predictions that are the big part of the fun for us.
The one thing I will say is that it's usually accurate, and I stress usually accurate, in predicting who will not win based on screen time. Like, you knew with 100% certainty that Cowboy Rick from South Pacific stood no chance, just because you never saw him.
And something like that probably doesn't diminish somebody's enjoyment of the show anyway, because you're not deriving enjoyment from Cowboy Rick. But I will say, this kind of makes me think of an argument, and again, I'm not putting this on Katrina, but the way some people, dislike critics. Like, why do you critique movies so much? And we'll use movies as an example. It's like, why can't you just have fun going to watch the movies? And yes, if you start thinking think about movies with a more critical eye, you are going to get less enjoyment out of all movies. Like, you're not, it's not just going to be that you're going out to have a good time. But you're going to get a deeper level of enjoyment of movies that are actually good. And I kind of feel like when you're that's the way it is for Survivor, at least the way we consume it. And again, I'm not saying the way we do it is better than other people.
Yeah, you are.
Clearly, we enjoy the show quite a bit because, we're spending our time talking about it. But by using all of the different ways of examining the show, it allows for kind of a deeper understanding and appreciation of it.
And I think maybe it didn't work this way for Katrina, but I know for me, I was always a fairly casual fan of the show. I mean, I liked it, and in certain seasons I thought it was great, but it wasn't until I started listening to podcasts about it, making comments about it, having Survivor fantasy drafts and stuff like that, that I was kind of like, man, I really appreciate the show. I'm really into it and looking forward to it now. And at least for me, that's how it works. Maybe Katrina doesn't feel the same way.
Well, and I'll also say that I was right there with her at times. Like, I didn't always consume the show in that way. I can think back to, say, Fiji, where everybody who was talking about it online was basically just like, oh god, Earl's just getting the biggest winner edit of all time. And I just kind of let that float by. It's like, we'll see. It helped that he was on such a poor tribe to begin. I was like, is he really? And then in retrospect, oh yeah, he was getting one of the biggest winner edits of all time. But that's not the way I consumed it, or at least I wasn't looking at it those perspectives of like, what's the show trying to tell us about win or loss? I was more doing a lot of hypotheticals. What does this person need to do A? If I was this person, to do B. Now I still do that part, but I also try to figure out what the show is trying to tell us and what that says about the show itself, what that says about the people, what that says about me. And I think watching it that other way, watching it because you enjoy a certain person, because you like LJ or something, that's legit. That's a fun way to do it. That's one of the reasons why Survivor is really great, is because there's like 10, 15 different ways of enjoying it. It's why whenever we have somebody on the show, one of our first questions is, what do you like about Survivor?
Hey, that was one of our first questions tonight.
Exactly.
Way to tie things back in, Andy. I think I enjoy, and I'm guessing you do too, but I'll throw this out there. I like trying to determine from the edit what the producers or Probst or whoever it might be, the editors, somebody, thinks about a given player. Because I feel like with Cass is a perfect example of this season. So Cass has gotten the whole Chaos Cass hashtag thing, blah, blah, blah. So you think, oh, maybe they like her, they're trying to build her up and they're going to bring her back, whatever it might be. But then the past 2 weeks, you get the most hypocritical sound bites from Cass, like just showing you what a hypocrite / villain she is. And, I would never vote out someone who annoys me because then you're just screwing yourself. And I would never flip on a group of 6. That's just ridiculous. All these things just kind of hint at some, I don't want to call it animosity, but for some reason, the Survivor producers or editors just kind of want to stick it to Cass a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe that's them trying to build a villain because they know that people are more engaged when there are some. But going back to Fuji again, like those people hated Lisi and Bravo because they should.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Lisi's borderline racist, and I would venture that it crosses over the border, her final tribal question, you should go to YouTube right now and look for that.
Yeah, and I'm even willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, like that her intro wasn't necessarily her being racist. It was all the rest of the stuff.
It was pretty cringeworthy, I'll say that.
But it's like one of the reasons why I don't mind the parade of losers at the end, because that's the editor's one last chance to take their shot at people. And with Lisi, they just show her like falling flat on her face in a challenge and like looking stupid. And I was like, bravo, editors, one more shot. Kind of circling back to my initial point. Yes, we spend a good amount of time, and maybe too much time. That's something to think about, talking about edits. But like I said, people are wrong about edits all the time. So we use them as kind of to help predictions, to help, predictive thought. But people are always projecting their own predictions and thoughts on edits anyway, right?
Right. Actually, we like to use them to sort of determine who has odds to win, which sort of segues pretty well into something else that we wanted to discuss tonight, which is how these people can actually win the game. The people that are left, what is their path to victory?
And interesting, here, we're leaving edit out. So we're not talking about, does this person have a chance? Because some people we're going to talk about, I think the edit tells us, no, they do not have a chance. This is not somebody who's going to win the show because they have not been a featured character. But if we were on some kind of omniscient viewer on the island as it happened, not post-haste for what they're feeding us, what would this person need to do at this point in the game to get themselves to the end? And these might be like crazy hypotheticals, like 5 things have to converge and lightning needs to strike on a spot for this person to win. But it's a fun little mental exercise that I've always done with the game of Survivor. In fact, usually what I used to always do when I was more of an underdog rooter is pick like the person with the longest odds. It's like, how couldn't they do it? So we've got 7 people left, and we thought we'd take a crack at what these people need to do to win.
Hey, speaking of longest odds,
yes.
Let's start with Cass.
Do you think there's anything Cass can do to win this game? And again, edit aside.
No, I mean, she's guaranteed to not get either Sarah or Morgan's vote. So she has to get 4 out of the remaining 5 votes then? I just don't think that's possible for Cass.
Yeah, I think there's nothing Cass can do at this point to win. There's things she could do to advance. There's even, I can see scenarios where she takes control of advancing herself in, a Final 5 situation or something. But at the end of the game, you need to face a jury, and those jury members are not going to be favorable to her. Because, like, you just canceled out Sarah and Morgan. I think we can cancel out Spencer, Jeremiah, and Tasha as well, right?
Probably. Yeah, I would think Spencer at the very least.
Mm-hmm. So now she has to sweep everybody else. So I don't think there's anything that Cass can do to win. So that was simple.
I like that even in our wildest imaginations, we couldn't come up with a plausible scenario where Cass could win, or even an implausible scenario where she could win.
Well, I mean, that's the game, right? Like, the game isn't get to the end. The game is to win. I mean, I'm at the point where I can't think of a plausible scenario that Russell Hantz could ever win. Forget, put him at the beginning of the game. You still need people to vote for you, and like, I can almost justify Cass flipping at this point, given knowledge that we've attained through boot interviews, that maybe she actually was on the end of her, alliance. It sounded like, Jeremiah and Spencer. Hey, guess what? Jeremiah was voted out last night, and that's the first time we mentioned his name. And I think Sarah and Morgan were forming something, but that speaks to Cass's failures as a human being playing a social game.
I can't believe that a lawyer didn't have the social skills to interact with her tribe mates and make them feel welcomed and loved.
Yeah, like if she was on the bottom, she put herself there. And that's why, I don't care what you do between now and that final jury cast. I don't see how you win that final jury over, so you can't win the game of Survivor. Can Jeffra?
So what is the final three where Jeffra wins? It obviously consists of Cass. Who's the other person that she needs?
So, I'm thinking you're saying that there's no way for Jeffra to win. This is my highly, unlikely scenario. It's not a final three.
Okay.
Which I think is in play this season.
I agree. I actually think that there's a chance we have a final two this season.
Yeah, so then what happens in this scenario, how Jeffra gets there? Next two votes, just Spencer and Tasha, which I think is the most likely scenario in everybody's thing. So then we get to final five, and at 5 they vote out Wu. And it could be that the three remaining women just form an alliance, or I could just see Tony actually coming with them. It's like, oh man, we gotta get Wu. He's a big threat. He's a big target.
Your Tony imitation is spot on, buddy.
Is it as good as my Rupert?
It might even beat out your Rupert.
There we go. And at this point now, we're assuming Tony's idol can no longer be played. At Final 4, Tony doesn't win immunity. Those 3 women vote him out. Final 3, Jeffra does win immunity. They vote out Trish. And now it's a Final 2 with her and Cass, and I think she wins.
Right, so that's basically the only person I can see her beating. So yes, a Final 2 with her and Cass. That is a path to her very, very unlikely victory. But it's funny that you said that. I think that Jeffra is the other one that has 0% chance of winning, because I think there's one more person with just no real path to victory.
Well, let's get to, I'm going to go ahead and say him now.
For me, and maybe it's just my bias. I have such a strong bias against Wu.
From the minute you saw his preview video, and you've never gone off that opinion.
No, and just comparing himself to Ozzy and being the, bro, dude guy. Spencer's openly mocking him last night as he's giving his vote against Wu. I kind of feel like Wu's not necessarily going to get the respect from people that they would want to vote for him as the winner. So again, if he's in a final 2 with Cass in the same scenario as Jeffra, I guess in that scenario he wins.
What if he's in a final 3 with Cass and Jeffra?
No. Oh, man, I don't know what goes on there. That would break Survivor. That would be the worst final 3 they've ever had.
Would it be worse than Fabio, Sash, and Chase?
Oh no, I've totally erased that season from my memory. That never happened.
Well, again, I think that's the path though. I think Wu needs to become Fabio. And
oh god.
I don't think that's a big stretch, Wu might be Fabio.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, my path for Wu is he goes on an immunity run for as long as he needs it, so maybe he doesn't need it for the next 2, right? Although somebody will need to win to make sure, Spence or Tasha don't win. But then he wins immunities until it's the final, and they gotta vote for somebody. And, I think people like Wu. I don't think, as you say, do they respect him? No. But do they respect Cass or Jeffra?
Definitely not. So, it's not that he has no chance of winning.
Like, no, I mean, no, like, he has no chance of winning. Like, when we get back to the edit, Wu is not your winner of this season. We know that
No,
much.
he's not.
But that's his path. Like, that's what he should be trying to do. And honestly, I kind of think that is what he's trying. Actually, no.
No, he's not.
I mean, he's trying to just win immunities, but even if he did, he'd probably, like, try to keep Tony around.
Yeah, he'd bring Tony with him. I think he's totally loyal to Tony at this point.
But, yeah, so that's what, or almost like it has to happen for him. And again, it's not like Fabio made a lot of decisions. It would be terrible if the season went that way. And again, Wu is not winning the season, so you can close the books on that one. But that's the hypothetical scenario. So getting to people that actually do have a chance to win, but it will be difficult. I kind of want to just smash Spencer and Tasha together because I think they both need to do the same thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm fine with combining them because the only reason that it wouldn't be the same path is if they ended up in the final three together.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to recommend for either of them, I'm assuming.
Right. Well, actually, yeah, I'll get that part out of the way. That'd be fine for Tasha, probably not as good for Spencer.
Yeah, I think Tasha's the more liked of the Tasha-Spencer duo.
Yeah. And then I don't think it can happen. I don't think they both could go to the final. I don't see how everybody else in the game would let that happen with two of them. So basically what has to happen for either of them to win is they need to win, if not all the immunities between now and then, enough immunities till the other side gets so bitter with each other that they forget about the other person. Kind of like Chris Daughtry or Danny Boatwright. Basically, that's what they have to do. They have to pull off that underdog late game immunity run. For starting, it doesn't have to be next week because one of the two will go away, but from that week on, they have to win all the immunities. And once they do, then I think they beat anybody.
I feel like, and I haven't listened to a lot of exit interviews from the people that are now on the jury, but I feel like everyone has said positive things about Tasha. Mm-hmm. I haven't really gotten quite the same vibe about Spencer.
I know Morgan really liked him.
I don't think anyone actively dislikes Spencer,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like people actually do like Tasha.
Yeah, and that's why, like, she'd beat Spencer, but I just can't see them both being in the finals together.
No, I agree. I don't see any path where they both make it there.
But I think either of them would beat anybody else if they were able to pull off this big underdog push to the finals. Which is why it's imperative for everybody else to not let that happen.
You think they could beat anybody else? So if it's, say, Tasha, Trish, Tony, where do the votes go then? You're thinking Tasha's going to get at least 4 votes?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll agree with you that Sarah and Morgan give Tasha the vote.
And then Spencer and Jeremiah, if it's Tasha.
Okay, and actually, having said Morgan, I almost want to retract that because I feel like she might go Trish. Actually, Sarah might go Trish too. I see I'm already talking myself back out of this.
I just think that what we're missing here from our analysis is the next 3 weeks, right? The next 3 weeks, they're going to have to go on a really exciting underdog run, and that will be what pushes people over to their side. And it would also detract from the argument that the other side gets to make, right? Trish can't say that I got to do everything I wanted to do because, hey, look, Tasha's still here.
That relies on the concept of a jury being swayed by the fact that you won immunities, like as if that builds your case.
It's not so much immunities as that the underdog sticks around, and people just love cheering for underdogs. You don't get this because you're a fan of the Miami Heat, but it's just a natural instinct. And hey, I'm a fan of the Los Angeles Lakers, but but at the same time, I love cheering against teams that are playing the Heat. It's just a natural instinct that, oh, look at that person that's winning, because for somebody that's been on the jury, that person now becomes the surrogate. Their surrogate, right?
Yeah, I get that argument. I don't know how well an immunity run works into that. Like, I don't think that that's part of the case. I think it's more what you're saying, that if you view them as an underdog, regardless of the immunity thing, if you somehow make it, you're the underdog that they're rooting for now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like, if they could make it a way other than immunities, then it would also work, but I just don't think they could.
I kind of feel like we don't have to talk about the last two because we've been laying out for weeks how Tony can get to the end and win.
Well, so there's 2 things I think that are worth discussing. For Tony, I think he absolutely has to win the Final Four immunity.
Yes, because he's going to be a huge target once that Tyler Perry idol goes away.
Yeah, and it's just like, I'm guessing everybody that's currently aligned with him, just like, oh, we'll take him out then. And it's been the case for a lot of dominant players. Boston Rob had to win in that spot. Kim had to win in that spot. Tyson had to win in that spot. Malcolm had to win in that spot, and he didn't, you know? So I think Tony's now set himself up that he has to win the Final Four immunity. Trish doesn't. Trish basically just has to stay the course and then have a good performance at Tribal Council, and she can win.
Yeah, Trish, it all comes down to, at least for me, and again, we don't know what's going to break in these final few episodes, but it seems to me if she's in a final tribal with Tony, it's going to all come down to that final tribal question and answer session and how well she sells her game.
Yeah, at that point, like, when the episode ended last night, and again, some of this is, edited inflated, but I was like, I think Tony will win if he goes to the end, because they're already identifying him as a target and potential winner. And other people are like, oh, no, they won't really vote for him, just like they thought with Tyson. But Trish has some fans there, and if she can, give them what they're looking for at Tribal Council, she could beat Tony. And if she doesn't, or if Tony gives them something else, then he could win. But he's gonna have to win his way there. She doesn't have to. I think almost every configuration of people that are left in the game would be willing to bring Trish along with them.
Yeah, she might not be the ideal first choice, but they wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, like Cass and Jeffrey would be like, oh sure, Trish, let's do it. Wu and Tony, let's do it. And then Tash and Spencer, again, we don't think that's a possibility, but even there, they'd be like, I could live with it. So yeah, that's basically there. They need, to get to the end and then perform, well at the Tribal Council, and Tony has to win to get there.
Yeah, Trish should just be doing everything in her power to get to Final Tribal with some combination of Cass, Jeffra, or Wu.
Yes. But I mean, even if it doesn't happen, she still has a good chance.
She does.
I think her goal is to take out Tony, but if it doesn't happen, her game isn't over.
Right.
So those are hypothetical things, not necessarily predictions. Let's get to predictions. Who's going home next week?
Seems highly likely that it would be either Spencer or Tasha. And now that we know that Spencer no longer has an immunity idol and the Tyler Perry idol is no longer in play, 90% has to be one of those two, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's either of those. So, neither of them wins immunity. Who's the first target? I'm going to say Tasha, because she's won the last two.
I think it should be Tasha, but I think it will be Spencer.
I think because Tasha's won the last two, the recency fear would be, we gotta get rid of her. And especially like if she could become, like she's the runner-up in the immunity challenge or something like that, then I think people are just like, we'll have chances to get rid of Spencer, but Tasha, this is like the first chance she's given us in weeks.
But Spencer's been the runner-up in the challenges.
And he won the other one. Oh no. And I mean, this underlines why it has to be one of them. No matter what the other people might be thinking, no matter how much they might be worried about Tony, no matter what bug Spencer puts in Tony's ear about Jeffra, which is, I gotta say, I don't believe for a second. Like, I believe he tries it, but that's just, that's the producers trying to sell us that something that unexpected is gonna happen. Nah. As we said last week, it doesn't matter that Jeffra's against you. She's not a player that can hurt you, and she proved that this week. No, it has to be one of those two, and I just, my guess is Tasha's the bigger target. Are you gonna go with Spencer just to be the other side?
You know what? I was going to say Spencer, but I actually wonder, do you think that it'll factor into Tony and I guess Wu's thinking at all that maybe you don't want to be so outnumbered by the women?
Actually, yes. I thought about that last night and completely forgot it. So yes, thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, then it keeps it kind of evened up, right?
Right. I don't think an all-women's alliance would form.
I think an all-women's 3-person alliance could form after these guys. But yeah, I could see just not wanting that on the table if you're Tony.
Right. So just to mitigate that risk, I'll say Tasha. I'll be sad if Tasha goes home. I like Tasha.
And then I guess there's the final edit that Spencer has been allowed to talk a lot more than Tasha, so maybe that means he goes farther than her. But, sure. What do we know about it?
Yeah, we'll be proven wrong next week. You can rub it in our face at the various outlets that we gave you before. If you want to do it, use Twitter. Really, it's the most fun way to interact with you, and especially because it forces you to be brief.
That's right. And you don't know which of us you're talking to at that point.
Yeah, that's the best part, is you never know if it's me or Andy that's writing back to you. Occasionally I'll throw in a -John at the end of my responses, but... And
sometimes I'll throw in a -John at the end of mine too.
Exactly, yeah, just to keep you on your toes. But if you want to make sure that you're talking to me on Twitter, you can find me at Justin Bieber.
And you can find me at I'm Really Tyler Perry, is that it?
I did mention this last week, and I think a bunch of people thought I was joking. I totally followed through. So I had said on last week's show that I was going to create a fake Tyler Perry Twitter account and just harass Jeff Probst with various Survivor-related ideas in the same way that Tyler Perry texted Jeff Probst to have a ridiculously overpowered immunity idol this season. So, at It's Me, Tyler Perry.
No apostrophe.
Yeah, no. ITS me, Tyler Perry. So if you want to see me harassing Jeff Probst, then I'm sure at some point soon I'll probably get banned and he'll report me to the Twitter police. But until that time, if you want to watch the random things that I suggest to Jeff Probst, at It's Me, Tyler Perry.
And then follow Jeff Probst as well. And then, yes, you can follow me at Andy_Sayers. So, speaking of editing, we should probably stop talking so we can edit this one.
Hey, but if we're going to edit, let's throw in
theme music.